So yesterday, we were writing equations of a line in slope-intercept form. Do you remember what slope-intercept form is? Yes. What is it?
Y equals mx plus b.
Y equals mx plus b, where m is what? Slope, and b is the y-intercept. Awesome. So today we're going to learn a new form. So that is point-slope form. So we use point-slope form when we're given the slope and a point. So our point we would name as x1 and y1, and our slope is still just m. So our point-slope form is y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1, where we would plug in the y1 and the x1, but we leave the x and y in our equation. Just like how our point slope, we just left x and y there, our equation's always just going to have x and y in it. But we're going to plug in the x1 and y1, that's the point that's going to be given to us. So we're using this equation now. So for example 1, it says write an equation in point-slope form of the line that passes through the point and has the given slope. So our point-slope form is y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. It gives us a point, so this is going to be our x1 and y1, and it gives us the slope, which is 1/4. So we just have to plug in what we have. So we start with y minus, what's my y1? 3. That's equal to my slope, which is 1/4, times x minus, what's the x1? So x minus -8. What happens when I have minus a negative? It becomes a plus sign. So this would be y minus 3 is equal to 1/4 times x plus 8. So anytime you have minus a negative, it changes to a plus sign. So this is our answer. So in the question, it said write an equation in point-slope form. So we leave the equation in point-slope form. We don't touch it. We just plug in what we need. Simplify if you have to. So let's look at B. So my point-slope form, again, y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. So my point is going to be my x1 and y1, and my slope is my m. So I plug in everything. So I have y minus what? Minus -1 is equal to, what would come next? Times x minus 3. Perfect. How can I simplify this? Awesome. Whenever we have minus a negative, we change it to a plus. So it would become y plus 1 is equal to -2 times x minus 3. So again, my point-slope form is y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. So my point would be x1 and y1. Remember, x always comes before y, so the x would be first. x1 and y1, and then my slope is the m. So now I just plug it in. So I would have y minus what? 0 is equal to, what's my slope? Times x minus 4. Can I simplify this at all? How? Awesome. We don't put the minus 0. It would just be y. So it would be y is equal to -2/3 times x minus 4. All right, for the next part, we're going to be writing equations of lines given 2 points. So when we're given 2 points, we can write an equation of a line using the following steps. Step 1 is to find the slope. How do we find the slope? Awesome. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And then we use the slope in one of the points to write the equation of a line in point-slope form. So example 2 says write an equation. It asks for slope-intercept form, but we can't do slope-intercept form because we don't have the y-intercept yet. So we have to start with point-slope form. We got to find the slope first. So we got to find the slope using our slope formula. What's the first thing we want to do before we plug it in? label them. So I have x1, y1, x2, y2. So my slope is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. We plug in everything we have. So that would be negative 2 minus 2 over 3 minus 1. What is negative 2 minus 2? Negative 4. And 3 minus 1? 2. Can I simplify negative 4 over 2?
Yes.
To what?
Negative 2.
Negative 2. So my slope is negative 2. And then we can use either one of these points. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to use the first point to plug it into point slope form. So I have y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. So y minus what? 2 is equal to my slope, which is negative 2, times x minus 1. Now we have to be careful here because the question asks for slope-intercept form. Is this slope-intercept form?
No.
This is point slope form. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. How can I make this equation look like y equals mx plus b?
Multiply the negative 2.
Awesome. I have to get this equation to be y equals. So I got to move everything else on the other side. The first thing I want to do is multiply that negative 2. How do I multiply the negative 2?
With another negative 2.
So I'm multiplying it to those parentheses. What do I do to multiply it to the parentheses? Distribute. That's the word I was looking for. Awesome. We want to distribute. So it becomes negative 2x. What's negative 2 times negative 1? Plus 2. All right, so we're one step closer to slope-intercept form. Awesome. I need it to be y equals, so I would have to add 2 to move that y to the other side. So this would be y is equal to, what does that plus 2 get combined with?
The plus 2.
The plus 2 that's already there. We can combine like terms. So 2 plus 2 would be 4. So this is slope-intercept form. So once we get it in point slope form, we have to distribute. And then get y all by itself. I'll say get y alone. So you got to move whatever is being added or subtracted to the other side. So we're going to do the same thing here. What's step 1? Find the slope. So we have m is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. I'm going to label my points x1, y1, x2, y2. So this would be 10 minus 4 over 3 minus 1. So it simplifies to 6 over 2, which is 3. Awesome. So my slope is 3. Now, does it give me my y-intercept? No. So it only gives me a point and my slope, so I have to use point slope form first. So point slope form is y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. So I'm going to plug in my point and plug in my slope. So y minus 4 is equal to 3 times x minus 1. Now, how do I get this to be slope-intercept form? Distribute. Awesome. So I distribute that 3 to both things in the parentheses behind it. So it'd become 3x minus what? 3x minus 3, because you got to multiply the 3 to the x and the 3 to the 1. So y minus 4 is equal to 3x minus 3. Now I need that y to be alone. How do I get the y to be all by itself? Add 4 to both sides. Perfect. Since it's a minus 4, I do the opposite and I add 4 to the other side. So y is equal to?
3x plus 1.
3x plus 1. Awesome. Great job, guys. So what should I do first here? I'm going to label them and then find the slope. So I have x1, y1, x2, y2. So my slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Then we got to plug everything in. So -4 minus -1 over 8 minus -4. So -4 minus -1 would be what?
-4 plus 1.
-4 plus 1. That minus a negative turns into a plus. So what's -4 plus 1?
3. -3.
-3. For the bottom, what's 8 minus -4?
8 plus 4.
8 plus 4, which would be 12. Can I simplify this fraction?
Yes.
How?
-1 over 4.
Perfect. I'm dividing the top and the bottom both by 3. You can divide it by a common factor. So 3 goes into both the top and the bottom. So it'd be -1 over 4. Awesome. So that's my slope. What should I do next?
Y minus y1.
I've got to put it into my point slope form. So I don't have the y-intercept, so I have to use point slope form. Y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. So I'm going to use my first point as my x1 and y1. So it'd be y minus -1 is equal to -1/4 times x minus -4. What happens when I have minus a negative? Turns into a plus. So this is actually y plus 1 is equal to -1/4 times x plus 4. So anytime you have minus a negative, it changes to a plus. Then we distribute. So I got to distribute that 1/4 to the x and to the 4. Bless you.
-1 for x minus 1.
So -1/4 x, then I'm multiplying -1/4 to 4. So times 4. How do I multiply a fraction and a whole number?
Put a 1 in the denominator.
Put a 1 in the denominator, so I'm multiplying a fraction to a fraction. How do I multiply fractions?
Multiply
Two
across.
fractions become a positive.
We multiply straight across. So it'd be -1 times 4 would be -4, and 4 times 1 would be 4. So when you multiply fractions, you multiply straight across. Multiply fractions straight across. Can I simplify -4 over 4?
Yes, -1.
-1. So when we multiply that, it would be -1.
You still got the y plus 1.
And it's still equal to y plus 1. But we want that y to be all by itself. So how do I move that plus 1 to the other side?
-1.
Awesome. -1. So I subtract 1 to both sides, so it'll cancel. So y is equal to -1/4 x. What is -1 minus 1?
-2.
-2. Perfect. Great job. So on the next page, we're doing the same thing, but it doesn't give us 2 points. It just gives us values. What did we say the inside part of the parentheses is? Is that x or y? X. So x comes from the inside, y is the outside. So we can make these points and make it 4, -2 and 8, 4. So I just turned this question into the same thing we were doing on the last page. Just make them points. That way you can see what your x and y are. So I'm going to label x1, y1, x2, y2. What's the first thing I need to find?
Not the function.
The slope.
The slope. So my slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Got to plug in everything I have. So 4 minus -2 and then 8 minus 4. How do I do 4 minus negative 2?
Plus,
Becomes plus 2. So 4 plus 2 is? 6. And what's 8 minus 4? 4. How can I simplify 6 over 4?
3 over 2.
3 over 2. Awesome. I just divided them both by 2 to simplify. So if you have a common factor, you can divide them. All right, so I found my slope. What's next? Put it into point slope form. So y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. So I'm going to plug in my first point as my x1 and y1. So I have y minus negative 2 is equal to 3 over 2 times x minus 4. Now this question doesn't say if it wants slope-intercept form or point slope, but we're going to put it in slope-intercept form just to practice. How can I simplify this a little bit? Make it y plus 2, perfect. Y plus 2 is equal to 3 over 2 times x minus 4. And then what would I need to do to put it in slope-intercept form? Distribute. So when we distribute, 3/2 times x would just be 3 over 2x. And then we need to multiply 3 over 2 times negative 4. So I'm going to do that on the side here. 3 over 2 times negative 4. What do I need to do first when I multiply a fraction and a whole number?
In the denominator.
Put 1 in the denominator. And then how do I multiply fractions? Straight across. Awesome. Negative 12 over 2, which simplifies to? Negative 6. Perfecto. So y plus 2 is equal to 3 over 2x minus 6. What's the last step?
Subtract 2.
Subtract 2 on both sides. I need that y to be all by itself, so I got to move the 2 to the other side. So I have y is equal to 3/2 x. What's negative 6 minus 2? Negative 8. Perfect. So B. What's the first thing I should do? Make them points. Which one's my x? 2. The number inside the parentheses. So it'd be 2 comma 3. And what's the second point? 6 comma 5. So I can label my x1, y1, x2, y2. And I'm going to plug it into my slope formula. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So this would be 5 minus 3 over 6 minus 2. 5 minus 3 is 2, and 6 minus 2? 4. Can I simplify 2 over 4? Awesome. Divide them both by 2, so it'd be 1 over 2. So I'm going to plug that in to my point slope form. So y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. So y minus what? 3 is equal to 1/2 times x minus 2. Awesome. We're going to leave this one in point slope form. Again, it doesn't ask for it here, but just for the sake of time, we're going to leave it here. What would I do if I wanted slope-intercept form? Distribute. Got to distribute first. All right, example 4. So we're doing the same thing, but it just gives it to us in a chart. So it says the student council is ordering customized foam hands to promote school spirit. The table shows the cost of ordering different numbers of foam hands. Can the situation be modeled by a linear equation? Explain. If possible, write a linear model that represents the cost as a function of the number of foam hands. So we're going to do the same thing as before, but first we need to check if it can be modeled by a linear equation. So can it? So in order for it to be modeled, we have to be adding the same number to get from one number to the next here, and adding the same number to get from one number to the next one here. So what am I adding to get from 4 to 6? 2. What do I do to go from 6 to 8? Add 2 to get from 8 to 10. And 10 to 12? Add 2. All right, and the bottom.
Plus 12.
I'm adding 12. What about 46 to 58? 12, 58 to 70,
12.
and 70 to 82. So because these are the same, that means I can make it a linear equation because we're adding the same. These aren't the same. 2 and 12 are not the same, but because it's 2 every time and because it's 12 every time, we have the same up top here, the same on the bottom. We can model this as a linear equation. So this is linear. If I was adding 2, then 4, then 6, then 8, then you can't do it because then it's not linear. So on the top, the number of foam hands is our X, and the cost in dollars is our Y. So I'm going to kind of treat this the same as we were doing the last questions, and I'm just going to pick 2 points. So I'm going to pick an X and Y and an X and Y. So if I make these points, it'd be 4, 34 and 6, 46. These are my 2 points. I have X1, Y1, X2, Y2. It has to go together. I couldn't just pick like 4 and 70 because when the number of foam hands is 4, it's $34. So you got to pick points that go together. So I'm going to label X1, Y1, X2, Y2. What's the first thing I need to do if I'm going to put this in point slope form?
Find slope.
Find the slope. So my slope is Y2 minus Y1 over X2 minus X1. So this would be 46 minus 34 over 6 minus 4. 46 minus 34 would be what? 12, and 6 minus 4? 2. 12 over 2 simplifies to 6. Awesome. So my slope is 6. What would I do next? Y.
Minus 34.
Awesome. Y minus Y1, so Y minus 34 is equal to 6 times X minus 4. Awesome. Now, how would we put this in slope-intercept form? Distribute the 6. So it'd be 6x. What is 6 times negative 4?
Negative 24.
Negative 24. So y minus 34 is equal to 6x minus 24. So I distributed. What would I need to do next? Awesome. I got to get y all by itself. So since I'm subtracting 34, I add 34 to move it to the other side. So add 34. And I combine it with the 24 because those are like terms. So I have y is equal to 6x. What is negative 24 plus 34?
10.
Positive 10. Awesome. So my equation is y equals 6x plus 10. So you pay an installation fee and a monthly fee for internet service. The table shows the total costs for different numbers of months. Can the situation be modeled by a linear equation? Explain. If possible, write a linear model that represents the total cost as a function of the number of months. So just to check if it can be linear, I got to make sure, am I adding the same thing every time here? And am I adding the same thing every time on this side too? So 3 to 6, what am I adding? 3. 6 to 9. And 9 to 12. What about 176 to 302? What would I be adding? $126, perfect. If I add 126, do I get 428?
Yes.
And if I add 126, do I get 554? Yes. Awesome. So just like I did before, number of months is going to be my X, total cost is my Y. So I'm just going to pick 2 points. So what would my first point be? 3, 176. My second point? 6, 302. So just pick any 2 points on our table, and we're going to do the same thing we've been doing the whole time. So I have x1, y1, x2, y2. What do I need to do next? Find the slope. So my slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So 302 minus 176 over 6 minus 3. So we just did that before. We got 126 over 3. Let's check. Can I divide 126 by 3? 3 goes into 12 4 times. And 3 goes into 6 2 times. So 42. So my slope would be 42. What would I do next? Put it into point slope form. So I'd have y minus y1. What's my y1? 176 is equal to, what's my slope? 42 times, awesome, times x minus 3. All right, the numbers are a little bit bigger here, but we can still handle it. What would I need to do first to put this in slope-intercept form? Distribute. So this would be 42x minus, what's 42 times 3? 126. Awesome. If we don't know that off the top of our head, write it down. 42 times 3. 3 times 2 would be 6. 3 times 4 would be 12. So 126. And that's equal to y minus 176. What would I need to do to get y all by itself? Awesome. Add 176 to both sides. So it cancels out on the left. So I have y is equal to 42x. What is negative 126 plus 176? Positive 50?
Yes.
Yep. Awesome.